I'm going to be talking about the Australian experience, and a lot of what I'm going to say today is do not do what we did. I am going to be quite open with some of the mistakes Australia has made and is continuing to make in transport policy. We are world laggards in a number of key areas, and I want to focus on those today to explain why we may think of ourselves as fit and healthy people. Everyone thinks of Australia. We think of Nicole Kidman, very thin, very slim, very athletic. No, we are fat, overweight people like me. And there's a reason for that. Our cities are not built for us to be healthy. And but I should just note the city I am speaking to you from is Brisbane, where we are hosting the upcoming 2032 Olympics. And that's the warm-up event for the real event, the Paralympics. And I'm very hopeful that by having the Paralympics in Brisbane, it's actually going to lead to a lot more focus on walkability and on movement corridors and designing those not just for people with wheelchairs, but for everybody to be able to use those spaces. My flow of my discussion today, just 3 sections. I'm going to talk about our transport emissions and our transport policy problems that are helping make us fat and sick. We still have so many diesel engines in our cities. We drive too far. We have too much pedestrian trauma and other road safety trauma. I'm going to talk about how we got to that situation and how we are starting to change course. There are signs of hope in Australian cities, but we've got a long way to go to get to truly healthy cities. So let's start with the emissions problem. And I have to say, Australian suburbia is a lovely place to live. I was house sitting for a friend in the outer suburbs in a suburb that looked just like this just 2 weeks ago. He had a pool. It was great. We could walk around the neighborhood, swim in his pool. You would think it would be a fantastic place to live. But the problem is that for most Australians to live in this space, they have to travel like this. And we are very car dependent in Australia. We make very long trips on arterial and subarterial roads. Some of the fastest growing cohorts of travelers in Australia are people doing more than 60 minutes travel each way each day. We have one of the lowest mode shares now for children in the world who walk and cycle to school. You know, that's really great. We are equal with the Americans, the US citizens, on being the lowest mode share in the OECD for cycling. We walk more than US citizens and we use public transport more, but things are not good in our cities. We're heavily reliant on fossil fuels for our energy. We're getting better with solar and wind for electricity. But for transport, the fastest growing share of emissions for us is transport emissions. And we're heavily reliant on oil from elsewhere in the world. We have 2 weeks' supply of petroleum products in Australia. 2 weeks. So if ever somehow there was a world war or something and petrol could not get to Australia, we are screwed. Our cities would not function. You can see here that transport makes up about 20% and a growing proportion of our emissions. And one of the reasons that it is growing and not falling is that we are one of the world's worst at buying and using electric vehicles of all the wealthy nations in the world. Even nations like Indonesia are now moving ahead of us in terms of electric vehicle manufacturing and sales. We are terrible. And it's an embarrassment for me as a, sustainable transport professor from my country. You can see here, yay, we're building finally in the last couple of years. We've started to get some very modest numbers of cars sold that are electric. I happen to own one of these cars. um, and, you know, I tried to live in the middle suburbs of Brisbane, but it was impossible. No girl would date me because social life in Australian cities is so car-based. If you look at what is really happening in Australian car sales, look at that bottom category. Australians are now driving some of the most obese cars in the world. Our cars have got gigantic. They have been growing at more than 1 centimeter a year in width and length for years now. And one of the reasons for that is we do not have a carbon price. We do not, we're one of those countries that still does not price carbon. You look at Europe, you look at Japan, you look at even China, you know, they have an emissions trading scheme. We have nothing of the sort. We are one of the world's worst when it comes to this. Look at the fuel taxes that we have in Australia. We pay some of the lowest petroleum fuel taxes in the world. Japan is significantly more than us, but again, you look at many of the European countries, way significantly more than us, and investing that kind of revenue back into road safety and back into public transport, walking and cycling. We've had prime ministers. This was a pretty terrible prime minister in our history, Scott Morrison, who said that if we brought in electric vehicles and carbon emissions, it would be a war on the weekend. He said that electric vehicles cannot tow your boat. They cannot tow your caravan. They would be the worst thing for Australians to have. So instead, we have cars like this, the big American pickup trucks that are excellent at parking in bicycle lanes, that are excellent in not being able to fit in a single car space, starting to become a very large share of the market in Australia. The Ram Dodge is a top 10 sales vehicle in Australia now. It's terrible. It's not just cars that are getting bigger, our houses are getting bigger. The housing on the bottom half of the slide is from an old neo-traditional neighborhood built in the streetcar era. You can see a housing built in the car era in the top of the slide. That's not the same road. I've just put the two together to show. And once we've done this, we have also separated all the land uses away. So now to go get a litre of milk, you have to burn a litre of fuel. To do anything on foot is quite difficult other than walk around your neighborhood for the fun of it. It's hard to walk to school. It's hard to walk to the shops. It's hard to walk to the swimming pool. It's hard to walk to the bus stop. Here is Australia. Latest data, we might have overtaken the USA now on biggest houses in the world. Hooray for the size of average new homes. They are gargantuan. The Australian housing population, the actual size of households, is very small by world standards. We do not need these obese houses. And with these obese houses and these obese cars, it's like we are getting bigger to fill that space. We as humans, we're moving less, we're walking and cycling very little as part of our daily lives. We're very sedentary and we're getting fat. How did we get there? We used to be very healthy cities. We had streetcars, the urban tram systems that were common in cities around the world up until really before World War II. And we had railways stretching out around which little transit villages were built. Suburbs, everyone could walk to a tram or to a railway station. There was no suburbia that wasn't connected to that tissue in the early parts of the city. But we listened to these Americans. I was going to use an adjective, but I'll be polite. I'm very sympathetic to the planners of the time. I think they thought they were doing the right thing. I think they did not see the consequences of their actions. But we really went for it. Once the 1950s came, Australia started producing its own cars. we were able to build suburbs that were house and land and car packages. We started building land uses where everyone had to provide car parking for off-street for these land uses. And we really went for it. We built some of the world's first park-in malls, some of the world's first drive-in cinemas, some of the world's first drive-in churches. We created whole suburbs where you could do nothing if you did not own a car. Really, there was a dinky bus that went around this suburb, but really, if you did not have a car, your social life would be very limited. And could you get to the jobs, goods, and services you needed in daily life? Not really. And like the Americans, the car manufacturers realized, and the retailers in Australia realized, that we could not just sell one car to the household, we could sell 2 cars to the household. We encouraged women to really take up motoring. Sorry, 5 minutes to go. And we really went for it. And we changed our cities to the car. We built the freeways. We rebuilt the inner cities to retrofit them, to squish freeways right through the heart of Brisbane. Part of this just demolished people's houses. And every time we tried to stop building freeways, politicians would come along and say, you know, the problem of the car, what you need is more car. You need more car, more road space. We will give it to you. We call this freeway the vomitron because it goes, so we built more and more of this, and we were pretty bad in Brisbane at transit-oriented development. Many other cities around the world, Canadian cities, Asian cities, have really done well. In a car-owning democracy, we have struggled with transit-oriented development. Politicians have been very nervous about community protests. So how are we changing? We finally had a progressive government elected 3 years ago who brought in a national electric vehicle strategy. For the first time, Australia set out objectives to actually meaningfully increase electric vehicles across different category classes. So that's primarily general motor vehicles, but also the heavy vehicle industry. And that has had some effect. It has started to change policies in a number of small but significant ways. And we finally brought in fuel efficiency standards. They came in last month. Oh, hang on, it's the 1st today, or is it the 28th? I can't remember. Anyway, 1st of January they came in, but we're only enforcing them in July. And we only brought in the American standards. We didn't even have them. We haven't brought in the European standards. We're pretty bad. They're meant to come in July. I'll come back to this on my last slide. We now have a number of state jurisdictions who are in charge of the road networks. The arterial road networks are owned by the states, bringing in zero emissions freight policies. The first to do it was New South Wales. Others are coming through. And we're starting to see the freight industry start to trial and begin the process, but we are not well advanced. And we have problems. And that includes in our safety standards. So Australia is not unique in the world. We have these safety standards. And these safety standards say that both these vehicles are a safe vehicle. We have, the legislation is explicitly written to bring safe vehicles into Australia for safe operation on Australian roads. Now we know the Dam Rog, the car on the right, sorry, I said that wrong. The Ram Dodge has a 13-meter sight line to a 10-year-old girl. Drivers cannot see them. I think we're one lawsuit away at a church or a shopping center with money from, there will be a terrible incident and the lawsuit will not be on the car owner. It will be on the landowner about them allowing parking and these vehicles to park in sensitive locations where pedestrians gather. I think we're one lawsuit away from a major change to how they can be used in Australian cities. But we ban all these vehicles. So we ban most of Japan's K cars, and we're banning these kind of cars, quadricycles. They were banned in the 1970s because they were loud, noisy two-stroke engines, very polluting, dirty gas out of because they were burning oil. You couldn't speed limit them. They were dangerous vehicles. Now the Citroen Army is speed limited to 50 kilometers per hour. It's only able to be used at low speed. It's quiet, it's electric, but this car is banned because it is a dangerous car in Australia's situation. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I'll explain further. But we think about parking and how much space these obese cars take. These other ones take up very little. This is the kind of vehicle you see in China, and they're producing this, the Wuling i-Air, in Indonesia in huge numbers now, very successfully, selling like hotcakes. We have nothing like that. Australia has the highest posted street speeds left in the Western world. I think there's 4 countries left with 50 km per hour as the default in all the major cities. New Zealand and Australia, we work together. Qatar and Saudi Arabia, we're in really good company there. Don't be like us. And we know that if you're, I've got this slide wrong, but we know what you need to do to get safe streets is get down to that 30 kilometers per hour. So Europe has done it almost en masse. The UK is going through that transition, most of their cities. Washington, DC is now, all its local streets, 32 kilometers per hour, 20 miles. Even Denver, no offense, Denver, but when American cities like Denver are shaming Australian cities, we are way behind this. And as a sign of the times, in Australia, you still see this. This is what we say is safety for children at a school zone. We give them 40 kilometers per hour all across Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, and many Japanese cities. Street speeds are much less than this, and people would think it's crazy to be driving 40 k's past the very front of a school. In London and in Paris now, many of the streets are actually closed to traffic. So what are we planning for? Are we planning just to maximize utility and speed, or are we trying to give people the access they need to the jobs, education, services they need in daily life? We're starting to reclaim road space and use it for higher and better.
Matthew, I think
time
far exceeded the 15 minutes.
Okay, sorry. Let me stop. Should have warned me, people. Sorry. Okay, I will leave it at that. There are signs of hope. We're doing something very interesting, a 50-cent fare policy across all of Queensland for all public transport has come in, but we also have a government that is going to get rid of the new, I think there will be an election in a few weeks, and they're going to get rid of the fuel standards again. So yeah, I will leave it at that. Thank you.